Episode 8, Years in Darkness. Part 1, The World Remade. 5 years had passed since the Dark Lord's victory, though time itself had become a broken thing. The sun, when it dared to rise, provided no warmth, only a sickly gray light that made shadows darker rather than banishing them. Seasons no longer followed their ancient patterns. Sometimes winter lasted 2 years, sometimes summer came for a single day of unbearable, scorching heat before plunging back into cold. The world map had been redrawn in suffering. Where once stood the proud kingdoms of men, now sprawled the dominions of despair. The elven forests had become the screaming woods, where every tree contained a trapped soul. The dwarven mountains were now the hollow peaks, mined empty and converted into vast torture chambers that echoed with endless agony. Father Aurelius, one of the few surviving witnesses to the world before, sat in a cave high in the mountains, writing by the light of a dying candle. His journal had become a chronicle of the end times, though he wondered who would ever read it.
Year 5 of the eternal night. I can no longer remember the taste of clean water or the sound of genuine laughter. The children born into this world have never known anything but darkness. They think this is normal. Perhaps that is the cruelest victory of all, the normalization of hell. Mundus mortis est. The world is dead.
Part 2, The Adult Soldiers. The Pied Piper's first victims had grown into something terrible. Those children who had followed Philly's corrupted flute 5 years ago were adults now, if the word adult could apply to what they'd become. The Dark Lord's transformation had aged their bodies rapidly while keeping their minds frozen in a state of hollow obedience. They were his perfect soldiers, strong, ruthless, and utterly without conscience. In the ruins of what had been Thornhaven, a regiment of these grown child soldiers conducted their daily hunt. Their leader, who had once been a boy named Timothy who loved butterflies, now stood 7 feet tall with eyes like black glass.
Sector 7 clear. 14 rebels captured. 6 killed in resistance. Awaiting instructions for survivors.
The response came directly into his mind. The Dark Lord could speak to all his converted children simultaneously.
Bring them to the cathedral. Their suffering will feed my throne.
Timothy, though that name meant nothing to him now, nodded and gestured to his unit. They moved with perfect synchronization, dragging the screaming survivors toward their fate. One prisoner, an old woman, looked into Timothy's empty eyes.
I knew your mother. She still cries for you.
I have no mother. I have only the master.
The woman was dragged away, her fate sealed. Hope was a word that had lost all meaning. Part 3, The Hidden Settlements. Not everyone had been caught. Not everyone had given up. But their existence was barely worthy of the name. Deep in the tunnel systems beneath the hollow peaks, pockets of survivors clung to life like moss on wet stone. They called themselves the Remnants, perhaps 3,000 souls spread across dozens of hidden settlements, connected by dangerous underground passages that the demons hadn't yet discovered. But living was generous. They survived on mushrooms and cave water. Children born in the tunnels had never seen sunlight. Disease was rampant. Hope was extinct. In the largest settlement, cryptically named Haven, a council met by lamplight. General Aldrich was there, scarred beyond recognition from his tortures, but still breathing. Beside him sat Elena, a witch who had refused to join her sisters in serving darkness. Across from them was Brother Thomas, not the young acolyte who had died at Thornhaven, but an older monk who had somehow survived by hiding in the temple's crypts during the invasion.
Food supplies are running low. The mushroom farms are failing. The darkness is seeping even into the deep earth.
We could raid the surface. The demons stockpile food for their human slaves.
It's suicide. Every raid loses us people we can't afford to lose.
Then we die slowly instead of quickly. What difference does it make?
There was no answer because they all knew the truth. There was no difference. They were the walking dead, merely postponing the inevitable. Part 4, Chained to Hell's Rock. In the depths of the infernal realm, Gabriel burned eternal. 5 years of constant agony had transformed the once mighty archangel into something beyond recognition. His body was more flame than flesh now, constantly consuming and regenerating in an endless cycle of destruction and renewal. The iron chains of hell had fused with his flesh, becoming part of him. He was as much a part of hell's rock as the rock was part of hell. The chains were not mere metal but concepts given form, forged from betrayal, despair, and broken faith. They conducted the suffering of every soul in hell directly into Gabriel's being. He experienced every torture, every scream, every moment of despair as if it were his own.
Still alive, Angel? 5 years and still screaming. Most give up after 1.
Gabriel's response was another scream. He had no words left, no thoughts beyond agony. The demon laughed and prodded him with a spear made from frozen tears, adding another layer to his infinite suffering. The worst part wasn't the physical pain, it was the knowledge. Through his connection to the chains, Gabriel could feel the world above dying. Every extinguished hope, every broken spirit, every child corrupted, he felt it all.
The master says you're his favorite decoration. Says you'll burn until the stars die. And then longer.
Part 5. The Prefatio Tenebrarum Preparations. In his Cathedral of Evil, the Dark Lord sat on his throne of ashes, planning something worse than conquest.
The Prefatio Tenebrarum. The preface to darkness. It's time to make my victory permanent. Master. A ritual to rewrite reality itself. To make light impossible. To ensure that even if I were somehow destroyed, darkness would remain eternal. Gather the ingredients. 10,000 souls at minimum. And we'll need an angel, a pure one. But Master, all the angels have fled or fallen. Not all. There are always stragglers. Find one. Even a lesser angel will suffice.
The preparations began immediately. The cathedral was expanded, its torture chambers redesigned to channel suffering into magical energy. Demons scoured the world for specific types of souls, the innocent, the brave, the faithful. Each would add their own flavor to the ritual's power. Part 6. The Evolution of Suffering. 5 years had transformed the human farms from experimental cruelty into an industrial nightmare. What had begun as the cultivator's personal project had become a vast network spanning continents. Each farm specialized in producing specific types of anguish to feed the Dark Lord's ever-growing hunger. The original farms still operated, but now they were just one part of a massive system. The cultivator had been promoted to overseer of all suffering, managing thousands of lesser demons who ran individual facilities.
Production is up 300%. The second-generation subjects are particularly productive.
These second-generation subjects were the true horror. Children born in the farms who had never known anything else. They didn't even have hope to crush, having never experienced it. Instead, they were raised with carefully calculated moments of near joy, always snatched away at the perfect moment to maximize despair.
Watch this. They've been taught that singing brings food. But every 7th time they sing, they receive pain instead. They never know which time will be the 7th. The anxiety is exquisite.
The children sang with desperate, terrified voices, flinching with each note, never knowing if this would bring sustenance or suffering. In the adult sections, the original methods had been refined to perfection. The separated couples from 5 years ago were still alive, still watching each other through cursed glass. But now their children, born on opposite sides of the glass, had grown up seeing their parents daily but never touching them, never hearing their voices.
5 years of this, and they still haven't given up hope. Every day they try to communicate, to break through. It's become generational suffering, a family tradition of futile hope.
The most productive farm was the newest, the memory gardens. Here, humans were allowed to keep their happiest memories intact, but were forced to watch them replay while experiencing their current torment. A mother who remembered her child's laughter was forced to hear it while watching that same child, now grown and corrupted into a demon soldier, torture others.
The contrast amplifies the suffering exponentially. Hope isn't just crushed, it becomes the instrument of its own destruction.
Part 7. The Death of Resistance. Across the world, the last sparks of defiance were being systematically extinguished. In the Eastern Kingdoms, the final rebel cell had been discovered and destroyed. Their leader, a woman who had fought for 5 straight years, was made into a living banner. Her skin stretched across the city gates, kept alive by dark magic, forever screaming. In the northern wastes, the barbarian tribes who had resisted were now extinct. The Dark Lord had ordered every man, woman, and child hunted down. Their frozen bodies were arranged in a massive spiral pattern visible from the sky, a message to any who might think to resist. The southern realms had tried negotiation, offering tribute in exchange for autonomy. The Dark Lord had accepted their gifts, then conquered them anyway. Their negotiators were transformed into demon heralds, forced to announce their own people's destruction.
Resistance is not futile. It's entertaining. But entertainment eventually ends.
Part 8. The Listeners in the Dark. In Haven, the settlement's listener, a young woman named Sarah who had developed the ability to hear across dimensions, sat in meditation. Her gift was rare and dangerous. Listening to hell could drive one mad. But sometimes she heard things that mattered. Today, she heard something different. Not words, not screams, but a flutter? Like wings, but not any wings she knew. It was so faint she might have imagined it.
What do you hear? I'm not sure. Gabriel still screams in hell. The chains still sing their horrible song. But there's something else. Something tiny. Like something that shouldn't exist but does.
Hope?
No. Not hope. Just difference. Something the Dark Lord hasn't noticed.
She didn't know what it meant. None of them did. But for the first time in 5 years, something was happening that the Dark Lord hadn't planned. Part 9. The Unnoticed Change. Deep in the darkness, in places too small for evil to notice, something was indeed happening. It started with the children who had been taken by the Pied Piper. Those transformed into adult soldiers. Their conscious minds were completely dominated, their bodies corrupted beyond recognition. But somewhere, in some impossible space between soul and void, tiny fragments remained untouched. Timothy, the child who had loved butterflies, stood at his post in perfect demon soldier form. But for just a moment, so brief it couldn't be measured, something flickered in the deepest part of his being. A memory not of butterflies, but of the feeling of loving them. It wasn't enough to break the corruption. It wasn't even enough for Timothy to notice. But it happened. And in happening, it proved something the Dark Lord believed impossible, that absolute corruption might not be absolute after all. Similar flickers occurred across the world. In thousands of corrupted children, in the deepest, most hidden parts of their transformed souls, tiny sparks of their original selves stirred. Not awakening, not resisting, just existing. The Dark Lord, for all his power, didn't notice. How could he? He was absolute evil, and absolute evil cannot perceive pure innocence, even fragments of it. Part 10. Gabriel's Revelation. In hell, through his endless torture, Gabriel felt these tiny stirrings. The chains that conducted all suffering also conducted this. These impossible moments of uncorrupted existence. For the first time in 5 years, Gabriel's screams stopped. Not from relief, the pain continued unabated, but from shock.
Impossible.
What's that, angel? Finally broken? Finally accepting your fate?
No. Something exists that shouldn't.
Shut up and scream properly.
Gabriel screamed, but now there was something different in it. Not hope, he was far beyond hope. But knowledge. The absolute victory wasn't absolute. Somewhere, somehow, innocence had survived. He didn't know what it meant. He didn't know if it mattered. But he knew. Epilogue, the world in year 5. As the 5th year of the eternal night ended, the world was unrecognizable. Cities were either destroyed or converted into demon playgrounds. The countryside was poisoned, growing only thorned plants that fed on blood. The sky was permanently overcast, the sun a pale memory. Humanity existed in 3 states: enslaved, hiding, or dead. The enslaved outnumbered the hiding by thousands to 1. The dead outnumbered them all. The Dark Lord sat on his throne, reviewing reports of absolute dominion. Every corner of the world under control. Every rebellion crushed. Every hope extinguished.
Mundus Mortis estimated. The world is dead.
But in the deepest cave of Haven, Sarah the listener suddenly gasped. That flutter she'd heard, it was getting stronger. Not louder, but more frequent. Like something preparing.
What is it? I don't know. But something's coming. Not now, not soon, but something.
In hell, Gabriel felt it too. Through his chains, through his agony, those tiny fragments of innocence were somehow multiplying, connecting. He couldn't understand it. The Dark Lord retired to his chambers, completely satisfied with his absolute victory. The world was his. Forever. But deep in places too small for evil to see, too pure for corruption to touch completely, something ancient was beginning to stir. Not hope. Not resistance. Just possibility. The years in darkness continued. The suffering was absolute, the victory complete. And yet, end of episode 8.
Felt you on my butt. Another blow, another scream. This is not a dream. Fed by